Welcome to our seminar today. Let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, what a wonderful, beautiful day it is today, and we're just so glad to be in such a beautiful place and to partake of information, holistic gardening, something that can bring health and life. It's something that we as Adventists cherish, and it has been proven, in fact, that it lengthens our lifespan. It's something the world needs to know. But personally, we need to know that. Bless our time together. Bless Mark as he leads. And we thank you for your presence here today. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. You know, there's usually, well, before I do this, at fellowship meal at our home church in Boone, which is a weekly event, occasionally we get a visitor. One of those visitors was Sue Blake, although we hardly call her a visitor anymore because she comes so often. She and her husband, Ken. Sue is a retired teacher and pastor's wife in Carolina Conference, and when she shows up at potluck and I have the privilege of sitting across the table from her, we talk about gardening, and before you know it, there's nobody left out at the table except the two of us. And then one day I said, "Hey, Sue, would you help teach the seminar at camp meeting?" And she said, after a little bit of persuasion, yes, she was willing. So she's one of those willing people. And you will not be disappointed in what Sue has to share with you. We're going to divide up each day in two sections, gardening section and the food section. And I do not have any handouts. What I have to say has already been said of any value. the last 2 years. And it is in a revised syllabus at the ABC. Now, I got a volume discount in printing. I got the business discount for the ministry in which I direct. I got the non-taxable discount. I got a 10% coupon discount in addition to all that. And then they made a mistake in the printing, and we really got a good discount. So the this ACBC has them over there for less than $10. And I give the guarantee, same guarantee we give with all of our produce that we sell. If it is not the best, most practical, organized, easy to implement piece of gardening information that you've ever seen, you keep it and I buy it back. I give you the money, okay? It's well worth the time. And most of what your questions that will be asked during this time about gardening will be in here as an answer. So I really highly recommend that. However, we'll give you more information. It's just that what we're doing this year is so practical and useful and visual, it's not hardly printable. But Sue does have handouts, and those you're going to want to have, and she'll direct how that's going to be accomplished. Now, there's usually more than one good way to do anything well, right? So we're telling you one way that's worked for us. I don't know what Sue's experience is at gardening, but I know it's considerable. And if you add hers and mine together, you're close to 100 years of experience in gardening. If you cumulatively add it here, I'm sure there's a lot of experience in gardening that we could share with each other, some tips. So I'd like to see a show of hands. And I don't want you to be embarrassed or humble or dishonest, but I want to see the hands of those of you who are really good at gardening. I mean, come on, I want to see it. Who are really good at gardening. And I want you to keep your hands up. Come on, up, up, up. Not green thumb. Here's a green thumb up here. You always want to know a green thumb. Get your hands up high. And those of you who are not really good at gardening, look around, see somebody close to you. If you have a question, ask that person. Okay? I hung around people who were good at gardening, and that really helped me over time. Now, there are books on display over there. You're welcome to peruse them as much as you want, but we would like you to leave them here. But it helps you be able to touch and feel before you buy, if you're wanting one. Okay? How many of you were here last year? Let's see. Okay. Year before? Okay. Vengeance is the Lord's. I hope you're not here for that reason. This is not a seminar on health or nutrition. However, it is about food, and food has its implications in both those areas, right? And we eat too much, too often, too late, too much fat, too much protein, too much sugar. We eat too little of whole foods and wholesome food. And our health message is do the best you can. There's things we will not share with you because it's too scary or too depressing. And, you can't be a health purist. You just cannot do it anymore. It just won't work. You might as well just roll over and die now, But do the best you can, right? That we can do. Grow as much as you can. This is to encourage you to buy as locally, naturally, organically, non-GMO as you can, and obtain from as close to the grower as you can. Our diet is not our religion, but our diet does affect our level of health, which in turn affects our ability to love, serve, and glorify God. Whatever we do, we eat with joy and thanksgiving and not worry, because worrying will cause the very problems that we're trying to avoid by eating well, right? So just enjoy it. I was invited to somebody I was giving Bible studies to their home to eat, and I was giving the studies to the gentleman and had never mentioned to him that I was a vegetarian. We hadn't gotten to that point yet. Got to the house, and his wife had fixed supper, and she had peas, cranberry sauce, and chicken. Now, if there's one thing I've raised, butchered, plucked many a chicken in my life, and I decided at a certain age that was the last chicken I was going to eat. And if there's one thing I wouldn't eat, it's an arsenic-laden chicken. However, I ate it with joy and paid for it for a couple days, but nevertheless baptized the gentleman because I did not embarrass his wife. Well, that wasn't because of it, but that was a factor. So just remember, through all this thing, our diet is not our religion. Now, the United States spends the most on health care per capita of any nation in the world. And where do we rank in terms of health? Number 33. North Carolina ranks among states 31. Tennessee, 43. South Carolina, 42. So is it important to have seminars like this? I think so. 70% about of our calories come from highly processed food, loaded with salt and sugar and fat and additives. We don't have the whole grains, and we prepare things in such a way to destroy most of the nutrients and antioxidants that are in our food. And we have this complex combination of stuff that is not actually grown. And I'm wondering if it's actually food anymore. I went to the grocery. Yeah, what's that, Sue? We'll find out in this seminar if it's actually food. We have unnecessary suffering, huge medical costs, and premature deaths. According to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, per year we get 76 million people sick from what they eat, 325 are hospitalized, and 5,000 die from something that they ate. Then Jesus said, gather up the fragments that nothing be lost. Now this is close to me. I don't know if any of you have ever been hungry or been places in the world where people were really hungry. Okay? Let me show you what we do in this country. We grow food. Sue, let me warn you, could be hazardous to your health here. We grow food. This represents 10 bushels of food. You know what we do with our food in this country? From the grower to the retailer, we throw that one away, 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 and that one away. Because it's not just like we wanted at the grocery store. Then I wrote down, I stopped by the produce man the other day who buys produce from me. I've never bought any produce for him, but he keeps buying it from me. And I said, nice peaches. Yeah, nice peaches. He says, you know what? He says, people come by and he squeezes the peaches to see if they're just right. And I throw away about 40% of what I buy to resell. So from the grower to the retailer, we throw away 40% of our food. He throws, the retailer, about 40% of the food away. And we're left with 8 baskets that make it to the consumer. And then we go to the grocery store and we fill these bags with groceries. And suppose, I don't know how many it takes, but we go home with 5 bags of groceries of sorts. And do you know how much we throw away? $22 to 24% of what we buy. So how much from the grower makes it to the consumer stomach? Food is not our problem. So we encourage you not only to do the best you can, but to do better than what we're doing. Okay? So while these technological people are trying to get us out of a real snag here with the computers, could we have Sue, would you mind taking over here from here and share with us? No, we won't do that. About halfway through, probably, Art will give us a signal. You'll need to speak.
Very good. We do. We're a very wasteful nation, undoubtedly. Mark had asked me to talk about what big agriculture is doing to our food supply. And so for the next 3 days, we're going to use the papers that I handed out on GMOs. We're going to talk about GMOs. You're going to know what they are, but especially what they do to you, to me, to our children, and to our grandchildren. And if you have not studied this topic before, I can guarantee you are going to be shocked. My name is Sue Blake. I'm a retired teacher. I will tell you how I got into studying GMOs. About 4 years ago, this particular DVD came out. It's called Genetic Roulette. And I had gotten a hold of it somehow. I don't even recall how. I played it, and something really struck me from that. And it's this. As adults, we all experience something from GMO exposure that's fairly similar. Either we get allergy, rashes kinds of stuff, or we get GI tract problems like leaky gut syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. All of these things are happening because of GMOs. And I will be able to prove that to you as we move along in this seminar. But at the time, I was suffering from the worst case of poison ivy I have ever had in my life. I mean, I had welts on me that looked like grapes. They were huge. So I put charcoal on them, and I watched them go down, and then my arm was all black because it had absorbed the charcoal. Maybe some of you have had that experience. But I was in misery. You know, nothing could touch my arms. If my sleeve did, I would wince in pain. It was hard to sleep. I walked around with my arms stretched out like Jesus on the cross. It was horrible. And so I heard this program on GMOs. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? I am losing a lot of sleep. Maybe I have something to gain by doing something with this. So I decided to eliminate GMOs from my diet. GMO means genetically modified organism. I eliminated them from my diet, and lo and behold, in a few weeks, my rash went away. I was really impressed. I thought, well, maybe this is just arbitrary. If I go over there, it sounds different to me, so I better stay away. So I thought, well, okay, I'll just go back to my regular diet, because maybe this was just... What happened? The rash came back. When I eliminated the GMOs, the rash went away. So I played ping pong this way for a while until I was really convinced that GMOs were, in fact, influencing me. And ever since then, I've been studying genetically modified organisms. I'm going to play just a little bit the beginning of this DVD, and hopefully we haven't turned the sound off. No signal. Uh-oh. Where'd the man go? Now we've managed to lose my picture. We've been having some fun up here. Now, while he's... Oh, that won't take long to give me the picture back. Please remember to bring this packet of handouts for the next few days because we will be working through them. And if you notice, it says GMO myths and claims. This is the abbreviated version. This is a synopsis of a 300 to 400 page research paper that came out last year. I didn't figure you want to read that. The first one that I did was about 12 pages, so I've brought it down to about 8 pages now. I keep trying to condense it. But because I've condensed it, I've taken off the resources. So if you need to have resources, you'll have to ask me to get the other paper to you. Uh-oh, now we're in troubles. Okay, now these are the myths that you will hear from Big Ag. Do you know what I mean by Big Ag? Big agriculture companies like Monsanto. There are 5 of them. I may remember 4 of them. Monsanto, Syngenta, Dow, Bayer. ConAgra is probably the 5th one. So this is what they claim. Look at the first one, myth 1. Genetic engineering is an extension of natural breeding. That's what they claim, but it's not true, and you will find out why. Nature does not cross horses and pigs. Nature does not cross, what's the latest one they've been doing? Let's see. Mangoes with sharks. Yeah. Nature does not do that. God has not designed nature to do that. So this is a myth. It's not reality. In fact, look at the FDA policy statement that was written in 1992 about GMOs. The agency has no information showing that GMOs differ from other foods in any meaningful or uniform way. And this has been the policy statement now since 1992. GMOs are the same as anything. Well, let's look at some of the points I put in this particular handout. The fact that GM is different from natural breeding is recognized by international law. The European Union, the Cartagena Protocol, an international agreement signed by 166 governments, and the World Health Organization. I somehow think that all this means carries a lot of weight. They claim, Monsanto will say, oh, it's all natural. But all these big organizations and governments say, oh, no, it isn't. Look at the second point. Natural breeding takes place when genes are exchanged between the same species. GM is a laboratory-based transfer of genetic material between unrelated species. Things that never would happen. Biotech firms tell their governments the GM process is totally different from natural breeding. So the GM seeds and crops are patentable. But then they turn around and they say, oh, it's no different. So they have it both ways. Big Ag says it is different. That's why they can patent it. And then they say it's no different. And you know what that means when they say it's no different? It means that they do not have to do any testing. Does that surprise you? It surprised me when I first learned that. I thought our government was supposed to be doing testing and monitoring the testing. But not in the case of GMOs, because they have said, oh, it's just like nature. We don't need to test this. Look at myth number 2. Genetic engineering is precise and predictable. This DVD, if we get it to play, is going to show us a little bit about that. So I'm just going to stop right there and hopefully we'll get this moving. Is it going to go?
Over the past 20 years, there's been enormous logarithmic increase in a whole series of chronic illnesses.
Things we're seeing today aren't normal. We didn't see them 30 years ago or 50 years ago.
Illnesses that were an epidemic before are now epidemic. And at a scale that is just monumental.
People are getting sicker. What's changed? Well, one thing that's changed is food. And the most radical change is the genetic engineering of our food supply.
And we have gone from food in its whole food form to food undergoing a scientific experiment.
More than hundreds of millions of acres of genetically modified crops have been planted in the United States, and yet most people are not aware.
The normal consumer, unfortunately, especially these days, is just busy trying to hold on to their house or, put their kids through school, and they're not aware of anything being genetically modified.
Obama's USDA is owned by biotech just as much as every previous administration. And if we don't do anything, like within a decade, every single major crop with any significant market size is going to be genetically modified, and we're not going to know it.
GMOs, genetically modified organisms. They take genes from one species and force it into the DNA of other species. And they can mix and match between species that have never normally mated. So they have spider genes that they put into goats in the hopes that they can milk the goat to get spider protein to make bone coat bread. I'm not making this up. They've taken cow genes and put them into pigs so that the pigs have cowhide. They've taken human genes and put it into corn to make spermicide. And for the food we eat, there's two main categories. The herbicide-tolerant crops, we can spray them with herbicide and not kill them. Or the pesticide-producing crops that produce their own toxic insecticide that if a bug bites those plants, it breaks open the stomach and kills them. So they're completely swapping genes between the normal species barrier, creating new organisms that were not part of the evolutionary process.
General public has the impression that genetic engineering is somehow a precise science. More accurately, it's some microscopic shooting from the hip.
The very process of genetic engineering creates unpredicted side effects. You take a gene and make millions of copies, and then put them in a gun, literally, and then shoot that gun into a plate of millions of cells. And then you clone those cells into a plant.
Typically, what they will put onto that is a virus or a part of a virus in order to turn that gene on.
Now, the process of insertion plus cloning creates massive collateral damage. There can be hundreds or thousands of mutations up and down the DNA, and hundreds or thousands of genes can change their levels of expression in the naturally functioning plant. This creates unpredicted side effects.
From a biophysics perspective, when we look at the signature now of that entire gene sequence, it's foreign. It does not exist anywhere in nature. And therefore, our immune system, which is truly a grand electromagnetic sensor system, looks at that material, that gene sequence that is supposed to be food, whether it's soy or corn or whatever it might be, looks at that and says, I've never seen that sequence ever. It doesn't exist in nature. It's foreign. It attacks.
inflammation creates additional serious disorders unrelated to digestion.
So I think we should probably look at allergies. I'm sure we should look at autoimmune diseases. And, basically anything that's related to inflammation. Heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, it doesn't stop. Thyroid disease.
Okay, so I thought that was a nice little introduction. Did a lot of explaining. I want you to look at the last page of your handout, the black and white page. It says GM quotes in the headlines. This is from Dr. Elaine Ingham. She has written textbooks for advanced study. She's a very brilliant woman. She works in the Rodale Institute currently. And this is what she says. GMOs are the most dangerous thing facing human beings in this generation. I should tell you that this summer there are a number of health groups that are coming together at The Hague in the Netherlands, and they are actually going to put Monsanto on trial for crimes against humanity. That's a bold step. But I mention that so that you understand this is a very serious situation. Sometimes I've had people say, oh, come on, we've been eating this way for 20 years. Nothing's wrong with us. You saw some of those charts. Correlation does not mean causation, but you have to look when you see that happening. Okay, let's look at the next quote. Oh, this came out last March from the World Health Organization. Glyphosate likely causes cancer in humans. Glyphosate is the main ingredient in Roundup. And this is what they're spraying on our crops in order to kill the weeds, whereas things like soy, corn, cotton, and we'll see the other ones in a moment, have been genetically modified so that they can be sprayed with Roundup and they don't die. Okay? So glyphosate likely causes cancer. That is a huge thing. The World Health Organization has levels of carcinogens, and they have put glyphosate on level 2. I know one chemical that is on level 1, and it is it's the main ingredient. It's 2,4-D, dioxin. Anybody heard of Agent Orange? We have some people in here who remember those days, don't we? The Vietnam War. And we hopefully will get to that in the handouts, but spraying using Agent Orange has caused a lot of health problems, especially neurological. In fact, my family suffers from it, not my immediately family, but my husband's family, with spina bifida. And we'll get to that maybe in a few days. But, okay, so they put dioxin on level 1. That is the most toxic thing on the planet. So right below it, they have listed glyphosate Roundup. Okay, something else next door to it. Glyphosate is a probable human carcinogen. This from the International Agency on Research for Cancer. These are big agencies, folks, really big, coming out with these statements. Look at what the next statement says. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine has asked doctors to advise their patients to avoid GM foods due to serious health risks, including infertility, immune system dysfunction, faulty insulin regulation, accelerated aging, and changes in major organs and the GI system. That's a lot of stuff, isn't it? American Academy of Environmental Medicine, another big organization. The last one on this page, I just thought these quotes were so dynamic. The last one from the American Academy of Pediatrics. A recent review of 195 medical studies links pesticides, and we're talking about Roundup, to childhood cancers, neurological and cognitive deficits, adverse birth outcomes, and asthma. And we're going to also look at the link between glyphosate and autism. Who heard of autism when you were, did you? My goodness, as a teacher, I had autistic kids that I was teaching, and I'm thinking, they have allergies, they have autism. Where is all this coming from? And animal studies have shown the links are very strong to these herbicides like glyphosate. Now, before I leave you today and hand the mic back over to Mark, I wanted to look at the foods to avoid. Here they are. These are the foods that are genetically modified. Corn, 91%. And it's used in animal feed, high fructose corn syrup, that's what the HFCS is, cornstarch, cornmeal, chips. Yellow sweet corn was introduced in 2012. Not all of our sweet corn is genetically modified yet, but it's on its way. And it's not in popcorn or white sweet corn. So, hasn't gone there yet, because those aren't that, these aren't the commodities on the markets, are they? The commodity is the yellow corn. So whenever we eat cornbread, or if we go to the Mexican restaurant and have some nachos, we're eating GM corn. Okay, soybeans are next. 94% of our soybeans are genetically processed. And it goes into lecithin, infant formula, and that one really, really gets me mad. In fact, let me see if I put it in this one. I'll show you something that will knock the socks off of you if I can. Okay, it's on page 4. Just flip to page 4 real fast. And right smack in the middle of it, you're going to see exposure of infants to GMOs and formula. Do you see that on page 4? About 25% of infant formulas are soy-based and are largely made from GM soy. Most commercial baby foods contain sugar from GM sugar beets. Beech nut is non-GMO, and I think that Gerber now has an organic one, but they put lecithin in it that is GMO'd. Okay, look at Similac, 42% GMO'd. Gerber, 48. Enfamil, 49. Walmart soy, 66. Over the days, I'm going to teach you exactly what GMOs do in our bodies. And you will be as angry as I am that we're feeding this to our infants. Okay, back to the other page. Just a quick look at what foods are actually GMO'd. Okay, sugar beets. 99% of the sugar grown in this country is from sugar beets, and but not sugar cane. In fact, I think I brought in my box. You actually can get a non-GMO sugar. Let me see if I've spot my box here. Mark has hidden it with all his baskets. Yeah. Okay, here. Dixie Crystals. This actually comes from pure cane sugar. So the rest of the sugar we have in our food, on our grocery shelves, is GMO'd because it's from sugar beet. All right, canola, 93% of that. Look at all the oils: canola, soy oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil. Oh, dear. Papaya, 80%. Yellow crookneck and zucchini squash, 13%. They're just starting out on that one. Aspartame, 100%, because it's made from a GM bacteria. Ever heard of E. coli? That's what they make aspartame from. Surprise, surprise. And then the last one are your dairy products with your bovine growth hormones, 30%. These cause cancer of the breast, colon, and prostate, and bone tumors in children. 30% of our dairy products. And I can tell you this, almost 100% of the cheese that we buy and eat. A few years ago, mothers got up in arms about bovine growth hormone being put into milk. And they went on a boycott. They boycotted Walmart. That forced Walmart to remove the bovine growth hormone milk on its shelves. So they do not sell bovine growth hormone milk there. But all those cheeses, Sargento and blah, blah, whatever, they're all, the only place I have found cheese that is non-GMO is in a health food store, and it has to say organic on it. Okay, 75 to 85% of processed foods in the U.S. supermarkets contain GMOs. About the only thing that doesn't are things like peaches and celery and lettuce. GMO labeling is required in 64 countries, including Russia, China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and the European Union. 9 out of 10 Americans want mandatory labeling. And I want to share this with you because there's another one that just hit the market, a GMO product. It's the GMO salmon. Have you heard of it? The Aqua Bounty salmon. This has just been approved by the FDA, but listen to this. This is kind of hopeful. More than 60 supermarket chains, including Costco, Kroger, Safeway, Trader Joe's, Target, and Whole Foods, now totaling more than 9,000 stores nationwide, have committed to not selling GE salmon. Walmart and Publix have not yet committed. But when people start boycotting Walmart, they will march in line because the fastest growing food industry in this country is organic. How many are organic farmers in here? You are amongst the winners. Yay! Okay. Oh, Red Lobster said that it will not use GE salmon. So that's another thing I didn't add to the list because that one just got approved. And there are 2 others that just got approval, and then I'm going to quit Mark. See, he doesn't know I could go on all afternoon.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
What happened with, I got a friend, he's raising a organic garden, but his neighbor don't. So he's worried because he spent money to put up that garden, and the other guy don't, so whatever is close to him.
That's a problem because you're going to get cross-pollination. That's a real big problem. In fact, legally, the legal definition of organic says that a farm has to be 4 miles from anything that has non-organic in it because that gives a buffer for the honeybees. 4 miles. Okay, I wanted to read this and then I'm done for the day. Have you heard of the non-browning potatoes and apples? They are just about ready to hit the supermarket. They were just approved. So, just think, you can cut an apple open and it will remain nice for half a month. The problem is, what else is growing on it in that half a month? You see, it masks what other pathogens might be growing on the thing. Same with the potato. It will shrivel up and die before it browns. Now, they did this by inserting, let's see, what they put in these? It was some kind of really nasty thing. It might have been E. coli again. I can't remember. But anyway, they turned off the browning genes in the apple and the potato. And they have done it by creating something called double-stranded RNA. There has never been anything like this in nature before. And this is really, really bothering experts. Let me just read a few sentences here before I say goodbye for the day. The non-browning apple and potato both employ a relatively new technology in which the genes inserted into the crops produce a double-stranded RNA molecule. This is not DNA. This is RNA. This does not happen. The sequence in the RNA enables it to silence the gene that causes browning when the apple or potato is sliced. So these things will look fresh for half a month. Numerous scientists are concerned that if we consume double-stranded RNA in GMOs, they might inadvertently silence or alter our own genes as well. Why do they think this? Because this has happened in the laboratory with mice and with honeybees. So beware. Do not buy the Arctic apple. It's called the Arctic apple, or the non-browning potato. These were just approved as I come up here today. Anyway, that gives you the basic idea of what I wanted to share. Thank you for your attention. And now for the master gardener. We've all been waiting for him. Mr. Green Jeans himself, Mark Heisey.
I'm going to regret ever inviting you. Scott, would you come up and take a moment here? We're switching gears a little bit because so much of what I had to share with you is dependent on actually being able to see some things. So we'll have to do that tomorrow. But Scott, go ahead and speak into this one if you would.
Yeah, main thing I wanted to let you know, these are wind strip trays. They're germination trays. They're made by Van Wingerden over in Mills River, California, or North Carolina. And they made them for in-house use. They're really not available to the public very much. I'm a farmer. I wanted some of these. A lot of farmers do want these, like small farmers that are doing it for a living. I've got about 100 of them in the truck, and I'm like the only guy that has worked my way into that big corporation, and they're letting me get these. They're used ones. They're not making these anymore, so I only got 2,000 left out of 7,000 I started with. So if you're interested in these, let me know. I'm selling for $6 a piece. I sold them to a retail store, and they're selling for $13, so it's a good deal. What makes them good is they're a square cell. These are 162s. There's 162 cells. They got little ventilation holes, so you don't get hot spots and cold spots. It's even temperature, so you don't get high growth on the edges and low growth in the center, or vice versa, depending on the temperature. The other thing, huh? Okay, the other thing that's good about them is because they're a cell, when the root hits the sidewall, it'll go right or left. If it goes right, 2 of the corners are solid, and they go straight down. And right here, there's a little break in the lip. If you put these on a screen, it'll air prune. The root will just stop. It doesn't wrap. If it goes the other way, that other corner is slotted. It'll stop going sideways. So theoretically, 50% of your roots stop going sideways or horizontally, and 50% of your roots stop going vertically. So what this does for you is you get about a week longer in this cell before it starts going south than a typical germination cell, like the little round ones. Number 2 is you can pop these out real easy. You don't have to sit there and massage those flimsy plastic ones. This will last 10 plus years if you take care of it. It doesn't get brittle in the sun. The other thing it does for you, when you do plant it when you pot this up or when you plant it in the ground, because the roots aren't wrapped, they'll take off about, within like 5 days rather than within 10 days, like a normal sort of wrapped around root cell. So these are pretty highly valued things among the small farming community. If you're interested, let me know. Like I say, $6 a tray. This is stuff. I have some little tomato seedlings I'm selling for $2 a pot, and I always put this Neptune's Harvest on it. If you're interested in that, they're $9 a pint. So just wanted to let you know about these trays mainly. These are special, and see me after Mark's talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Do you have plants as well?
A few plants, tomatoes.
Okay, great. Really appreciate that. Those of you who've gotten some things from him before, we'll be glad he's back here with the plants. Yeah, let me rethink this here just a tad bit, okay? We might need to just scratch all the rest of this stuff. Include it tomorrow. We have enough collection from last year anyhow. So we have how many minutes till we finish? 30 minutes. Okay, do you have any more questions for Sue? And then I'll repeat the question if you have it. You will by tomorrow. Nancy, you just speak into the mic.
Sunflower seed lecithin, is it okay?
I have such a loud mouth, I forget to use this. Sunflower seeds are not GMO'd. Sunflower oil is one of the few oils that you can use. If you look at the packaging in the grocery store, like potato chips or corn chips or any of those things, they all have corn, canola, cottonseed, or soy. But there is one, it's called Skinny Pop. Skinny Pop popcorn has sunflower, so sunflower is fine.
Anybody else? Back here. Or just say your question, we will repeat it.
Do I have a No, but I have a cell phone number. I could, if you want some of this material, I could send it to you that way. No, I don't have a website. I'm not that techie, I'm sorry. Yeah, email. SueBlake@mindspring.com. Mind as in your brain, spring as in summer, fall.com. Oh, by the way, I'd be glad to come and share at your church. Oh.
Okay, thank you so much, Sue. The email again is
Sue Blake at Mindspring.
Sue Blake at mindspring.com. That's good, a label reader. Thank you very much. This used to be apples, but now it has a number of things. It even has corn in it. When we get food, we box it, we can it, we bag it, we wash it, we gas it, we irradiate it, we preserve it. I picked up this, I'm not a grocery shopper. I can go through a grocery store and come out with go in hungry and come out with nothing to eat. And as you start reading labels, that's what'll happen, This is pretty small print. I was almost amazed it didn't have a warning label for, like so many things do nowadays. But I counted up to over 70 ingredients, and I gave up. Real cheese banquet. Real cheese banquet. I don't know. A frozen something. But even in the inside of cans, we put things to line them so they don't rust that you wouldn't want in your body if you knew it. There's several different types of corn in this thing. That used to be a potato. I have a neighbor who used to be a potato farmer, had over 400 acres in Florida. Sometimes they would go from the field, the conveyor belt to the back of a truck, drive the few miles, less than 10, to the potato chip factory, and they would reject the load because it was too many rotten potatoes. And I went to show him one of them. I said, Jim, you got to come see this red potato. It was so big. I never saw a red potato this big. And he says, they'll all grow that big, Mark. I said, well, mine all don't grow that big. He said, well, I tell you what we do. Ladies don't want big red potatoes. They want small red potatoes. So when they get to that size, we go through our fields and spray the plants to kill them. So they don't grow anymore. So we get the right size potatoes for the ladies in the grocery store. And it is the consumer that is, because it is money that drives a lot of things. So it's we as consumers that have some power to change our food industry. We even package organically grown lettuce with plastic that's loaded with, what are they called? PBAs? PBB? What is it? PPAs. BPAs. We ought to trade places. And what do we do with the humble orange? We drip it in hydrochloric acid. Then we give it a boric acid bath. Then we cover it with fungicide. Then we wax it. Then we heat it to dry the wax. And then we ship it thousands of miles. And there's better methods. Let me just, we're gonna skip all this nearly. But it is about gardening. So God placed man in a garden with employment and for a purpose to care for the things that he had created. And in the new earth, it's the Eden life will be lived, the life of garden and field. Adventist Home, page 549. Gardening is a witness opportunity. Had a neighbor come by. We say neighbor, using that term quite loosely where we live. It can be within about 10 miles radius somewhere. He came by to look at, to meet us and talk to us, et cetera, and walking around the farm there, he says, "You're not from around here, are you?" I said, "No, and I'm proud of it." And I said, "How did you know?" He said, "Well, look at your garden." I said, "Yeah, look at the garden." It's a witness opportunity. We planted trees. Got a backhoe in to plant fruit trees the way Ellen White suggests to plant them. And we dug these big holes, and the neighbor's saying, "Why are you digging these big holes?" Because it's better to put a $5 tree in a $20 hole or a 50-cent tree in a $20 hole, right, than a $20 tree in a 50-cent hole. Yeah. And then we just filled up the holes again. And he just couldn't grasp that. It's the same guy that says, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a minister." He said, "And you working on Sunday?" I said, "Well," I said, "The Bible says to work on Sunday." He said, "No, it doesn't." I said, "Yes, it does." He said, "No, it doesn't." I said, "Yes, it does." It says 6 days labor, 7th day rest. This is not 7th day, this is first day, right? Right. Okay, it says work on 6th. It says to work on Sunday.
What did he say?
He didn't say much, but his son came up to me afterwards, went back, it was along the road. He stopped me along the road. And his son came up later in the afternoon and asked me to say all that stuff again because his dad won't let him shoot guns on Sunday. He was looking for a reason he could. But when the man died, I preached his funeral. So it's witness opportunity. But we're planting these trees. He happened to be the one digging it with the backhoe. And that's in March. The next June, we're picking peaches. And peaches don't normally grow where we live very much at all. And the neighbors wanted to know, "How do you have peaches?" And I said, "Well, this little lady about 100 years ago in our church, she suggested how to plant trees, and I just tried to copy it as best I could." "Did she write that down?" "Yeah, she wrote it down." "Did she write anything else?" "Yeah, she wrote a few things down." "Could I get one of her books? I'll see if I can make that happen." We gave him Revelation Bible studies in our home. He made a better person. We didn't convert him to the church or anything like that. He eventually, he would come at special occasions, but he was seemed to be a different man. Mm-hmm. So it's a witness opportunity, isn't it? It's a good source of food. It's one of the best you can get. It's right there at the latitude and longitude where you live. It's a good place to be eating food. Builds our character. We reap what we sow, don't we? We reap actually more than we sow. We reap what we don't sow. We get salvation, and that's something we didn't sow. Christ expects a yield from what he has sown, coming back to harvest. It helps us learn the value of money, provides fun and satisfaction for the family. It's great exercise. Mrs. White says that no open-air exercise is better than the cultivation of the soil, Minister of Healing 265. It's a local source of food in a crisis. There's crises that happen in this country, floods and tornadoes and power outages and all sorts of things, and people seem to get a little worked up when they don't have enough to eat. And they don't have much stored back. And there's going to come a time when no man can buy or sell. And I don't know how the Lord's going to work it out or where I'll be at the time. But if I have something to give to a neighbor who's in a crisis, I think they'll listen to something else I have to say. So that's reasons to garden. Now, you'll be happy to know that tomorrow we will not be meeting here, and I mention it now while I'm thinking about it. We're going to be next door that has air conditioning better than we do in this room. Okay? So let me just revamp things, and this is some compost. You're welcome to come up here and put your fingers into it afterwards. It feels so good. I hurt my back one time, and I had a friend. I asked him to till my garden. He tilled the garden. And then I got down on my shorts, and I had my son nearly bury me in the soil. And the therapy of that was just tremendous. And there's a lot of electrical current that's going on here, and a lot of activity. And if you dig around a little bit more, you'll see a lot of things moving in here. So in the next few minutes that we have, we're going to just go on a few basics about how to garden, because we're going to talk about the increasing of the yield, increasing of the nutrient value of your food, so that it'll last a long time. The produce man that I sell produce to, I walk in there, he says, "Do you have any more garlic?" I said, "No, you bought it all. But I'll have some in a couple weeks, you know." But see, I didn't give it to him all last year. I waited and portioned it out. So I give him garlic through the winter time. But I gave him pumpkins. And at first it's like, yeah, we need another couple pumpkins around here, until he had somebody buy a pumpkin and then come back and want more pumpkins. And he wouldn't sell the last pumpkin. He had it there for 7 months. He said, "Your pumpkins don't rot." I said, "Well, it's not the purpose of growing them to make them rot." So they don't rot. So I want to share with you how to keep your food, how to grow food so it keeps and keeps very well. But even if you don't want to keep your food, and we usually throw out, this week I threw out the rest of the red beets from last year. Dumped them out yesterday. Because when you're starting to harvest the new, why do you eat red beets that are that old, you know? And you do the same with your carrots. And you see, I went to potluck this last Sabbath. I hardly ever miss a one. And I said to a lady, "That was so good. It was rice, garbanzos, and tomatoes something." I said, "That was really good food." She said, "Well, it should be. It's your tomatoes." She froze some tomatoes. She says, "My last frozen tomatoes that you had last year." Oh. A few weeks ago, I said to a lady, I said, "Oh, that potato dish was so good." She said, "Well, it should be. It was your potatoes." I didn't even know that, you know. But, yeah, you want food that's good to taste, will keep a long time, and you want to be successful at growing it. So there's a few pointers that will make your effort and your money go farther in terms of results and success, and that's what you really want to do. Now, one of the things about a seed is that the root always grows down, and the cotyledon, the leaves, always grow up, right? On every seed. So this last week I was instructing people how to plant seeds. And by the way, this is a nice little thing. You get them at a building supply to store your seeds in an organized way. You put all your lettuce in one, or all your greens in one, your corn in one, your beans in one. Keeps it really organized, and then you make a space in your freezer that you can stick them all in there if you want to, or at least a refrigerator, and that'll keep your seeds a whole lot longer. And in the syllabus is a section on seed storage and use. And if you're growing plants and they're open pollinated varieties, and you want to store your seed and keep seeds so you don't have to buy seed, because I don't garden to spend money or waste time and energy. Do you? No. So that's the way you can save money, is saving seed from your plants. Been learning how, a few little tricks, and it's in the syllabus to work very well. One mistake I made this year, and I didn't even think about it, I don't know why, but I got that way, I just didn't think about it. Now, if you're making transplants, am I going too fast or too scattered? See if this works. Is that okay? Yeah, all right, great. This is a transplant. The one way you get the reason you use transplants, sometimes you get to jump on the season, you get more for your money in terms of the time. Where we live, it snowed earlier this month, so I got to get a head start on some of the plants, and so I start these plants. Now, if they're yellow leaves, they're not going to be any good anyhow. You're going to plant that in the ground. Now, how deep would you plant that? Where it was planted before, or up to the first leaves? Up to the first leaves. Why would you plant the vine crop up to the first leaves? Yeah, it keeps them from getting sun scald. Yeah, because they almost always get sun scald. Cucumbers, squashes, zucchinis, all these little vine crops. If you don't grow them if you're not putting seed in the ground and letting it grow on its own, if you use a transplant, it almost always will get sun scald here, weaken the stem, sets it back a couple weeks if it even survives. So you want to plant it down deep to that crotch there where the first leaves start. And those two leaves that have popped off aren't the true leaves anyhow. They're the cotyledons that's just got bigger, so they're not going to do much good for the plant anyhow. When you take it off, make sure you don't damage the stem. And it's better if it's a young transplant to hold it by the leaves. Why? Because it'll grow new leaves if you damage the leaf, but it's not going to grow a new stem. And you can easily bruise a tender stem, especially if it's ones you had in the house growing. And you take a little piece of newspaper or some other sort and just wrap it a little bit like this. And what that does, it frustrates any cutworm that would come up there. And since it's an early thing in the season, and it's a green thing, cutworms love those things, and there's not much else growing in your garden. They come up from last year, they're bopping up, they're hungry, and they're looking for something green, and you just gave them a buffet. So it's no, if you spend 6 weeks trying to grow a little plant, getting it ready to put out in the ground, and you don't plant it correctly, or in a way to frustrate cutworms, you just lost 6 weeks of time. Or maybe 4, because things you put in the ground will almost always catch up eventually, but at least close enough. So that's a little tidbit on your vine crops. And the whole vine that's under the ground does root. It's like a pepper or tomato. It will root and then feed more. Last year, someone gave me tomato plants from a relative of theirs, and when they gave it to me, they were about 2.5 feet tall, 2 feet tall. They were their leftovers, and they're long, skinny stems. Well, I'm not too big into that, but I thought, well, it's planted. So I took this long tomato plant, and I dug a hole in the ground with a pair of post hole diggers. And I let a little bit stick up, like the neck of the thing stick up out of the ground. And last Sabbath, one of the church members, I took a bunch of plants to church, and I brought some here too. Not enough for everybody, so you're going to have to buy them from Scott, and they're probably better from Scott anyhow. And if you have perfect attendance here, or you with the free with any other purchase or something like that, we'll see that you get a plant. Or if you help me move the stuff from here to there tonight, anyhow, we'll get you a plant. He told me Sabbath, he said, remember that long, skinny tomato plant you gave me last year? See, I couldn't use them all, so I started giving them away. He says, the best plant we ever had. Why? It's because I told him, get a post hole diggers and dig it down and stick it as far deep as you can. Just let the neck stick out of the ground. And that whole stem will root, and then, if you can't dig it down, then you dig it a long, skinny trench like that, and just lay it down and then just gently bend the neck up out of the ground. And that gives the whole stem to root, and that'll provide a lot more nourishment for the plant, and you can save it for a lot of purposes. 10 minutes? Great. I'm going to survive this after all. All right, this little gizmo here, since I have mostly raised beds, not mostly, actually we have enough garden to fill this room, cover this room about 6 times, maybe 7 times. I spend about an hour a week in the summertime tending my gardens. Most of the work is planting the garden and coming back and harvesting the garden. This is a simple way, since most of the house garden things are in beds, and that's some of the pictures I hope to be able to show you tomorrow. It's a bed that's about that wide. And they're all consistent in size. And so this is how I plant. I don't till those beds. I just take my stick and go forwards and back twice, and now I have all the rows already prepared to put the seed in. Okay? And this is the bottom. I have 4, 5, and 6. 4 is for green beans and yellow black beans and things like that. 6 is for carrots and red beets. I like the red beets that are the Orofino. Help me. What's the name of the tall, skinny red beets? No, they're not the bulbs, the rounded things. We grow those too, but I like the tall, skinny ones because they're the cylinder beets, because you can eat them like carrots, and if you chop them up to can them, all the sizes are consistent, and my wife can do that. I don't have to cut the big ones, any lady can cut the small ones, cylinder beets, so it makes it really nice. And so you can plant them close together. But that way, you got them all the rows ready. Turn it sideways and do that. Wash your hand over it, and you're finished with the bed. So a bed that's 10 feet long, you can be done in just a few minutes. It makes it simple and easy, and it's consistent, and your rows are pretty straight. But remember that nothing in nature grows in rows. So why would you plant in rows? Now, you might, for the sake of having to harvest things, like peas or corn somewhat, but even corn you're better off to plant in clusters, aren't you? At least 3 rows together. But I was planting getting the things ready for the potatoes, and the neighbor says, don't you want your rows straight? It doesn't bother me. Does it bother you? I said, no, I guess not. Okay, then. that need to be straight? No. You want to spend your time making it straight? It's okay with me. It's you know where it is. That's what's important. And one way to know where it is in the fall is to stake it. So you know at least who the beginning and end of your row is. But, if it's curved, it's okay. Things like that. Because what happens in nature is a plant grows next to its buddy, next to its buddy, next to its buddy, or generationally, because together they make a climate that is more conducive to them living there and less conducive to something else competing for that space. So if you like to weed, plant in rows. If you don't like to weed as much, plant in groupings. And that's why I recommend in beds, or you make your own bed, or at least in sections where you plant your plants together. Okay, we got 5 minutes. Let's take a couple questions, and then we'll call it a day. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
When you plant your long tomato, like you were saying, do you still wrap the newspaper around it? And if so, how do the roots get out?
If you plant your tomato deeply, how do the roots get out if you still wrap it with newspaper? You only wrap the neck with newspaper, just what's sticking out of the ground, about an inch under the ground and about an inch above the ground. Cutworms aren't very smart. They just know enough that if they bump into something that's green or they smell it and they're getting the newspaper, they'll go look for something else to eat. So it's just below the surface of the soil and just above the surface of the soil. They can't fly yet, they're just crawling, and that really will deter them well. And I do it to most plants that are transplanted just for a sense of security that, they're not going to get it tonight. I can sleep well. Something like okra's got a tough stem. They'll go look for something easier to bite. You usually don't have to something like okra, but almost any tender plant. And if you can break the stem with your fingers or damage it severely that way, then, a cutworm can as well. So be very careful with that. Okay, who else? Yes, sir. I'll repeat it.
You plant most of your garden in beds or create your own soil, right? I come from Florida where the soil is like beach sand.
Right. Making your own soil, yes. Well, earthworms do it for me, but that's a big thing. When we first started our house garden, we took a bulldozer. I wanted flat land. And we live in the mountains, and so I had this bulldozer come in, and after a while I didn't care. Hard to explain to him to save all this topsoil, and what would he do with it anyhow? So I said, just cut the thing. Couldn't put a pick in the ground, literally. It was that hard. And now this week we planted, and it's 15 years later, but you can just move it with your hands or your feet and put your stuff in it. You don't need a tiller or anything. But that takes time, but you can make the soil, quotes, you can, microorganisms and little bugs and stuff will do it for you, and we'll cover that later in the week, how to make the soil. And this is soil that's being made even as we speak. Okay? So another hand here. Are you waving? Yes, sir. Watering?
Raised beds, do you water them?
The question is about watering with raised beds. The nice thing about watering, using raised beds, is that watering is minimal. And if you have a lot of humus in the soil, it retains the water. And it's a rare event that I would ever water my garden after starting a transplant, partly because at night we get such cold nights, we get the dew that's heavy almost every summer morning, and that'll help a lot. But raised beds expose it to a little bit more to the sunshine, so it could dry out, but if you have enough humus in there, the roots go down deep, and the sun can't hardly get rid of it unless you're in some terrible drought, and that's a rare thing where we live. One more question? Okay, last question, sir. How deep are most of the raised beds? I've never seen the bottom. Topsoil is probably about 16 inches in most of the raised beds. If you really want to do a raised bed well, there is instructions in the syllabus how to do a raised bed, and that giving it more energy and electricity that's happening there by a negative, positive reaction, and it's pretty successful. It works very, very well. All right, Art, you want to close? I'm sorry, I missed. I went by to me fast. Can you do it? Whatever it is you're telling me to do.
Pray with a personal appeal.
Oh, pray with a personal appeal. That sounds like a preacher. That's good. Okay. I had to think that one through. I don't pray lightly. I don't use prayer to open a meeting and close a meeting and quiet everybody. But I think I can work through this one. Okay. Lord, we want to thank you so very much for the wonders of your grace and creative genius and privilege we have as Seventh-day Adventists to have just a little bit of extra blessing in this respect, agriculture. And I pray that you will help us to understand it and cooperate with your divine laws. To your glory in Christ's name. Amen.